this brings me now to the next thing. So after we've listened to their story, how do we tell our story? So what happens at that awkward moment when they say, well, tell me about your faith? And that's where they may say, well, how did you become a Christian? They're going to say, well, how did you become a Christian? Or if they don't, you say, would you like to hear how I became a Christian? Maybe that's the best way. So when they say, well, tell me about your faith, you give them a question, well, would you like to hear how I became a Christian? And they will say yes. And that's when you say, well, I grew up in a Christian family. Well, both mum and dad were Christians. Not that they made me a Christian, but at the age of 16, I had to make a decision for myself. And then, don't say that, because that would just bore them. Because unless they're a Christian who grew up in a Christian family, that is a meaningless story. And it's just Christian jargon. That's just code for everyone else who grew up in a Christian family. They know what you're talking about. For everyone else, what on earth are you talking about? And really, was it at the age of 16? Really? So anyway, so let me now teach us how one way, not the only way, maybe not the best way, but it's a way, a good way, but not the only way of telling a story. And so what a story has, it's a collection of events, but put through a storytelling grid. And at this point you think, are we allowed to use grids? Yes, everyone uses grids. Even the Bible writers use grids. 2 Ways to Live has its grid. Everyone has a grid. So you have your events, and you're trying to put it through a storytelling grid. Well, what's a good storytelling grid? Well, a storytelling grid, which has withstood like 2,000 to 3,000 years of time, is the Greek rule of threes. According to the Greeks, everything is better in threes. So those of you who are desktop designers, yep, better in threes. Even speeches, blood, sweat, tears, red, white, blue, telling jokes. There's an Englishman, an Australian, and there's an Irishman. It's always threes. Everything works better in threes. And the storytelling grid goes like this. 1, 2, 3, where you have an intro, you have a body, and you have a conclusion. All right. And there's some important transition points. This is one of the most important ones. This is where you bridge the body to the conclusion. This one, usually you're setting the vision or the direction or the mission occurs at this point. So see how this works. Greek rule of threes, intro, body, conclusion. You see this in Christian songs, contemporary Christian songs. Verse 1, verse 2, chorus, chorus, bridge, hold it back now. Chorus, 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 like that. So that's the Greek rule of threes in Christian music. James Bond movies, it always begins. There's usually a bit at the end. This bit here, the French call the denouement, the unveiling, the new norm, whatever. Okay, so James Bond movies, there's always a chase at the start. They catch the bad guy. Why? Because now that sets the mission. Oh, there's someone out there trying to blow up the world. So now the mission is stop the someone out there trying to blow up the world. So they get closer, 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 and they're always captured at this moment. Why? So the bad guy can supply the bridge. You look back, oh, this is what it's all about, and then you look forward. So the bad guy summarizes everything that's gone on before. So this is where now you have the complete story, and then you conclude, which is bang, everything just blows up in a James Bond movie, and that's Hollywood. Everything's resolved through violence or a gun chase. It just blow it all up, and that's our conclusion. And then there's a little denouement at the end, usually. Romantic comedy, boy meets girl, girl meets boy. Now there's a mission. They need to fall in love. They need to get together. So slowly, 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 at this point, boy loses girl. And then there's a montage. You know, he looks back, do I love her? Do I not love her? And then he goes, yes, I do love her. And so he has to climb a mountain, swim an ocean, catch a train, and he finds a girl. And then they explain in the denouement how they met and how wonderful and how happy they are. Sports movies, you know, there's a team, they're hopeless, but now there's a mission, there's a championship to win. So this coach gets them together, they train, and there's a moment of self-doubt. Are we good enough? I don't think we can do this. Yes, we are. So now there's a training montage. They train. And then they go to the championship and they're up in the first bit, down in the next bit, but they win right at the end. So even there's a Greek rule of threes. All right, so what does this mean for your Christian testimony? This is a storytelling grid. So naturally stories could or should follow this. Intro, introduce who you are. Who are you? What drives you? What is your personality? What is your psychology? What are your dreams? What is the happy ending you must have in your life? And without it, then everything will be a sad ending. What is the happy ending that you need? What is your existential cry? What is your angst? Who are you? This is the hardest thing. I used to get my Bible college students to write their testimony. They used to spend an hour with a blank page looking, who am I? Who am I? Just really, who am I? Okay, so, but once you got this out, now you know your mission in life. And for every bit of who you are here, there's always a flip side that makes that your weakness or makes that what stresses you. And so now you're in this mission in life. The bridge moment is where you go, oh, it's all about Jesus. It's actually all about Jesus. Every God-given want I have here, which I was thwarting by looking in all the wrong places here, I can find here in the gospel. So this is here now where you talk about your commitment to Jesus and the denouement, what the new life with Jesus looks like right now. So I grew up in a Christian family. I can have that story. Or when they say, well, tell me, do you have a faith? And I go, well, how about I tell you how I became a Christian instead? Would that help? And they'll go, yes, okay. I say, what you got to understand about me is I am Asian, and so I'm a high achiever. I'm a high achiever. And then you give them examples. For example, I was that kid in primary school who would always stick up his hand and say, Miss, I finished all the work. Can I have more work, please? In high school, when I got 99%, I was thinking, where did I lose that 1%? I was the high achiever. And so trophies meant a lot to me. Awards meant a lot for me. I was a very driven person. And I got into medicine, Sydney Uni, top 1% in the state. That is the dream of every high achiever, medicine at Sydney University. So that's your mission in life. My mission in life is to be a high achiever. But, and this is where you tell them the flip side of being a high achiever. Actually, the trouble with being a high achiever is there's always another mountain to climb, always more exams to sit, always more trophies to earn. And you realize the trophies are more for you than for the other people. And that's the irony of being a high achiever. You're actually very insecure. You need things for your security. And you remember your mistakes more than your successes. For example, I would have gone to 100 ward rounds as a doctor, but I only remember the one where they show the x-rays of my failure. You remember your failures more than your successes. So as a high achiever, you're very insecure. But I remember in high school, the chaplain getting us to read a book in the Bible called Romans. And I think there, for the first time, I realized Jesus was perfect, so I didn't have to be perfect. Now, up until now, yes, I'd grown up in a Christian family. Yes, I knew Jesus had died for my sins. Yes, I knew I could have eternal life as a gift. Yes, I knew God, loved me just as I am. But I think for the first time, I realized Jesus is perfect. So I don't have to be perfect. God sees me as perfect just the way I am. So this came to a climax many years later when I had to choose whether to stay in full-time medicine or there's an opportunity to tell people about Jesus. Now, full-time medicine is the perfect job for high achievers. It says, I have achieved, I'm successful. Bank managers want to talk to you. They want to give you their money. At parties, people want to talk to you. They want to hear doctor stories. You go to full-time ministry, bank managers do not want to know you, and people do not want to talk to you at parties. So you think, well, where is my identity? Where is my esteem? But I thought, you know what? Jesus is perfect, so I don't have to be perfect. So I can give up everything for him who gave up everything for me. So in this new life now, my friends from medicine days see me and they say they can't believe how much I've changed. They say, I don't drive like a jerk anymore. I don't dominate the conversation at dinner parties anymore. So I used to be quite an insecure jerk. But now because of Jesus, I'm very secure in who I am. And so a very useful exercise tonight would be for you to go home and think, how could I write my story? And you could have multiple versions according to your audience, and you can vary the length. Missionaries have taught this. They're taught to have a 1-minute version of their story, a 5-minute version, and a longer story. So you can see how your story can be lengthened or shortened. Just shorten it or lengthen it, and different ones. So just interesting, even the Gospels follow this grid. So you meet Jesus. He gets baptized here. He's got his mission. And at this moment, he enters Jerusalem. There's the Garden of Gethsemane moment. Oh, do I really want to do this? Oh, yes, I do. And then he dies on the cross. And except for Mark, so everyone has a denouement scene where he comes back and sees the disciples, but Mark doesn't have it. That's why it feels a little bit funny, the way it ends. John has the same thing. So Jesus comes, baptized, does his miracles. The bridge moment is when he's in the room with his disciples. Then he dies, and then he meets his disciples on the beach in the denouement moment. So everyone has their grid. They have different ways. So even John has a very different way of telling Jesus' story than Mark. And same with us. We can have different versions of our story depending on our audience.